Chapter 25. Back to Docks. The bright face of the moon rose up to hide in violet clouds that veiled her like a bride. She watched the crouching boys who hid in fright, while Doughty panned and peered into the night. Within the faintest whisper, Thomas said, "You get it?" He answered with a nodding head. He showed the handle poking from his pocket, and Thomas said, "I can't believe you got it." Clancy whispered back, "You gotta get. You run to Docks, and make sure you stay hid. We can't split up. We's better on our own. Where are you going then?" "I's going home." Clancy pointed north and urged his friend by lifting his chin. "Best be getting then. And Tommy, run, and never think to stop. You gotta beat old Doughty back to Docks." Thomas didn't know what all took place, but he could read the pleading in his face. Though leaving wasn't the frontiersman way, he patted Clancy's shoulder and ran away. His sudden sprinting provoked the dog to bark, so Doughty looked their way, though in the dark. Clancy smacked the dog upon the nose as Doughty glared and slid the window closed. At that, Macree and Boone traversed the trees and crept along the road like hunted thieves. He shrank as if they were a melting witch by kneeling in an irrigation ditch. The silver stream beneath the sparkling moon was starlit strings from off a magic loom that lined the shallow trench which soaked his knees from shin to thigh and chilled his naked feet. They watched as Doughty searched the schoolyard grounds. Even his lantern hoped that they'd be found. So left and right the glowing torchlight shone, as if the golden eye looked on its own. The deacon whispered, "Boy, I know you're there. Approach me now, and I won't harm a hair. I only want to talk." And Doughty waited, as if he watched a bobber that he baited. But Boone and Clancy didn't make a sound. No breath of air, no foot disturbed the ground. And moments lasted long as Doughty searched, anticipating Clancy would break first. Shrewdly the deacon whistled. He slapped his thigh. "Come, doggy, get some fish." So Clancy bridled Boone and squeezed his snout, preventing any woof from sneaking out. Submissively the dog rolled on his back, and water pooled in waves of inky black that funneled down his ribs around his rump. His hinging legs were splayed both out and up. The tension of those seconds stopped the earth. Cicadas didn't buzz, no crickets chirped, and Doughty didn't move, nor did the light allow its flames to flicker in the night. But suddenly the earth began again, as Doughty whirled with the torque of many men, marching with madness fierce enough to roast the horse that he untied at the hitching post. The carriage tires creaked with pops and squeals, the gravel ground beneath the iron wheels. Clancy watched it climb the moonlit hill, as Boone shook off the water and the chill. The screen door to the kitchen framed Miss Coo, who held a lantern and was gazing through as flying bugs were buzzing to and fro around the screen, attracted to the glow. Behind her, scrapes and clanks produced a din as plates were cleared and cleaned into a bin. And even with the flow of open air, the staff was wilted by the heat in there. She pushed the screen door wide and heard it creak, as if the stretching springs had tried to speak, but it was like the door had given up when it was speechless after slamming shut. Miss Coo stood in the yard, and with a screech, she shouted far beyond her lantern's reach. "You hear me, boys? Y'all come fetch the bin." She paused to look and said, "It full again." Out by the barn a shadowed figure stirred. Although the shape was faint, still she inferred, based on the person's gait and wide-brimmed hat, that it was Terence. "Where your brother at?" Terence approached, yet now with quicker pace, as yellow light began to touch his face. He dodged her question, of which the boy was skilled, and said, "Yes, ma'am. You say that trash is filled?" Miss Coo replied, "Just like a hog about to farrow. Go get your brother and lift it in the barrel. It packed down deep and stacked up tall. I says it finna take the both y'all." With slight offense, he said, "No, I can get it." But with Miss Coo it earned him little credit, and so she said, "Ain't 'bout to watch you try. Finna turn the kitchen to a sty. Now go and get your brother. Where he be?" "They with the deacon. They all left at me." And while those words had hit the evening air, she glanced away and held a puzzled stare. He saw her eyes grow wide, and he assumed it was the other boys her eyes consumed. Before the boy can turn, his body seized to hear the deacon's voice say, "Where's Macree?" He turned to see the man and recognized the too familiar look of angered eyes and wrinkled nose above a snarled lip that came before the deacon cracked the whip. Though Terence tried to talk, he couldn't speak. With both them questioning, he couldn't think, as if his wagon wheels rolled into ruts. Between the two of them, the boy was stuck. In slow advance, Dowdy kept approaching, and Terence seemed to shrink at his encroaching. His shoeless feet felt fixed upon the earth, as mumbled words fell lamely to the turf. "Macree? I reckon. Him and Tommy, well, you see, what happened was, as truth be told." Behind Miss Coo, they heard the southern gate was loudly latched by a faceless shadowed shape. The deacon hoped it was the one he sought, who had the whip, and with it he'd be caught. Instead, it was the other Maury twin, who huffed and puffed to try to catch his wind. She said, "You panting like a long-tongued hound." And Thomas said, "Been chasing one around. That good-for-nothing Boone done hopped the pen. Done chased him clear to Allatoona Bend." The deacon slyly said, "That's why I'm here. I saw him by the schoolhouse, and I feared that he was loose." "He wasn't over there. That can't been him you seen. I solemn swear. The dog hightailed for home, but we done catched him. Digging for a rabbit he tried to fetch him, and Clancy whipped him good. Just with his hand. He didn't have no whip, you understand." The mention of the whip by his volition had made the deacon squint with sure suspicion. Then Thomas tried to cover up his tracks. "You know, a good old-timey backhand slap. Miss Coo, that bin's as heavy as a sow. I need y'all to take the haul away. If Clancy left, then he don't get no pay." The deacon said, "Macree will surely get what's due the lad. I'll pay without regret. Miss Coo, there isn't any need to chide. I'll help the boys. You're needed more inside." She looked down at the boys and pursed her lips, then said, "I'm finna tell that Doctor Phipps that all y'all more trouble than you're worth." She stormed inside while mumbling a southern curse. And when the screen door slammed, they felt the angst of losing their protection at their flanks. Although Miss Coo was ornery and brash, she saved them from the serpent in the grass. The fork-tongued devil slithered close and said, "My lads, please take away your looks of dread. My coming here should cause you no alarm. I seek Macree, but not to do him harm." They'd never seen that softness in his eyes. When Dowdy said, "I will apologize. Please help me, lads, to set the matter straight, and talk to him before the night grows late." The deacon looked at Thomas. "Where's your friend?" "It's as I said. I left him at the bend." "Don't lie to me." "I know you both were there, and an accomplice gets an equal share of punishment. The rope. But I won't press a charge if you come clean and just confess." "Confess to what?" He whispered, "Thievery. You can't deny you acted with Macree." The boys exchanged a look as if they knew, a silent language shared between the two. And with each glance their fluent thoughts were clear, accented by a subtle tug of ear. At that the bigger twin began to cry and said, "Forgive me, please. I cannot lie. When me and Clancy done seen that dinner spread, we couldn't help but steal a chicken leg." "No, not a chicken leg, you fool, the whip." Terence couldn't resist to add a quip. He feigned to cry and said, "It's true, you're right. I stole the whip, potatoes, but just a bite." "Well, I suppose you think you're funny, boys. But this is not a time for slies and coys. I want a private meeting with Macree. Tomorrow, after church, just him and me. So have him meet me at the school at noon. And if he shows, I'll make it good for you. Promise me you'll tell him what I've said." "I reckon you ought to take it up with Red." The tension of the deacon's face and fists could rip apart a tater in a twist, and every fiber of the deacon begged to snap the neck just like a chicken leg.